The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's sky like dark clouds blocking out the sun. Commander Velthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the small blue planet through his viewing screen. He had conquered 47 worlds before this one. Earth would be number 48, and it looked like it would be the easiest victory of his long military career. His tactical officer, Sub-Commander Mordak, ran scans of the planet's surface. The results made both aliens laugh with contempt. The humans had no energy shields protecting their cities. Their weapons were primitive metal projectiles instead of plasma beams. Their fastest ships could not even leave their own solar system. Commander, their technology is at least 300 years behind galactic standards, Mordak reported, his voice filled with amusement. My computer estimates complete conquest in 72 of their hours. Velthar nodded, already thinking about his next promotion. The Vorthon Empire rewarded successful commanders well, and this would be his most effortless campaign yet. He had studied the tactical reports from other conquered worlds. Usually, primitive species put up fierce resistance for weeks or months before surrendering, but Earth's defenses were so weak that serious resistance seemed impossible. Down on him. Earth's surface, Captain Li Dongsu watched the alien fleet through the windows of Seoul's military command center. The ships were enormous, each one larger than a city block. They hung in the sky like deadly jewels, their crystalline hulls reflecting the sunlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Sir, we're getting reports from military bases worldwide, said Lieutenant Park Mina, her hands flying over her communication console. The aliens are jamming most of our long-range communications, but we're still receiving scattered updates. Li Dongsu picked up the secure phone, connecting him to the Pentagon, NATO headquarters, and other major military commands around the world. The conversations were all the same. Humanity's most advanced fighter jets could not penetrate the alien ship's defensive barriers. Their missiles exploded harmlessly against invisible force fields. Their nuclear weapons were being intercepted by some kind of energy beam before they could reach their targets. What about our special forces units? Li Dongsu asked his communications officer. They're going dark as ordered, sir. All elite units worldwide are following Protocol 7. Complete communication silence and deep cover positions. High above them, Commander Velthar was already planning his victory celebration. His fleet carried 1 million Vorthon soldiers, equipped with energy weapons that could melt through steel, powered armor that could stop any human weapon, and personal shields that made them nearly invincible. Against Earth's primitive military, they would be like gods walking among insects. The first wave of alien fighters screamed down through Earth's atmosphere, their hulls glowing red-hot from atmospheric entry. They moved faster than any human aircraft, turning and diving with impossible precision. Their energy weapons carved bright lines through the sky as they targeted military installations with surgical accuracy. Major Kim Tae-ho commanded an armored division stationed outside Seoul. He watched in horror as the alien fighters approached his position. His tanks were the most advanced in the Korean military, equipped with the latest armor and weapon systems. They had seemed powerful just hours ago. Now they looked like children's toys. All units, engage the enemy, Kim Tae-ho ordered through his radio. His tanks opened fire simultaneously, their main guns thundering as shells flew toward the approaching alien fighters. The projectiles struck the alien craft and simply bounced off, leaving no visible damage. The aliens' return fire was devastating. Bright blue energy beams struck his tanks and melted through their armor like hot knives cutting through butter. Within minutes, Kim Tae-ho's entire division was destroyed. He crawled from his burning tank, his uniform smoking, and watched the alien fighters continue their systematic destruction of human military forces. Similar scenes were playing out across the globe as humanity's conventional forces crumbled before superior technology. By nightfall, most of Earth's major military installations lay in ruins. The alien ground forces began landing in the major cities, their transports touching down in public squares and parks. Vorthon soldiers emerged wearing black armor that seemed to absorb light itself. They moved with mechanical precision, establishing checkpoints and communication arrays with practiced efficiency. Commander Velthar reviewed the day's battle reports with satisfaction. Human casualties numbered in the hundreds of thousands, while Vorthon losses were exactly zero. No human weapon had managed to penetrate their shields or armor. Their energy weapons had proven devastatingly effective against human vehicles and fortifications. "Sir, the human governments are requesting surrender negotiations," Mordak reported. "Let them wait," Velthar replied dismissively. "They can surrender when I'm ready to accept it. Right now, I want them to understand completely how powerless they are." As the alien commander retired to his quarters, he felt the deep satisfaction of another successful conquest. Tomorrow would bring humanity's formal surrender, and he would add Earth to the growing list of worlds that flew the Vorthon banner. The humans had fought bravely with their primitive weapons, but bravery meant nothing against superior technology and overwhelming force. This backward species would soon learn their place in the galactic order. Outside, in the ruins of Earth's cities, something stirred in the shadows. The conventional military had fallen, but not everyone had given up the fight. Dawn broke over a world that looked nothing like it had 24 hours earlier. Smoke rose from the ruins of military bases across every continent. The Vorthon ground forces marched through the streets of major cities, their black armor gleaming in the morning sun. Their boots made metallic sounds against the concrete as they established control points at every major intersection. Commander Velthar stood in his command room, studying holographic displays that showed green markers across Earth's surface. Each green dot represented a secured area under Vorthon control. The map looked exactly as he had expected it would. The human military had collapsed faster than his most optimistic projections. "Excellent work, Subcommander," Velthar said to Mordak, who was organizing the occupation reports. "I believe this may be our fastest conquest on record." But as the day progressed, strange reports began filtering back to the flagship. Sergeant Choi Hyun-woo had been leading a routine patrol through the ruins of downtown Seoul when his entire squad vanished. Their last transmission was a brief burst of static, then nothing. Their armor's tracking signals had simply disappeared. "Equipment malfunction," Velthar dismissed when Mordak brought him the report. "These primitive conditions are probably interfering with our technology." However, similar incidents began occurring worldwide. A Vorthon reconnaissance team disappeared in the subway tunnels beneath Tokyo. Another patrol went missing while searching the ruins of a military base in Colorado. Each time, the aliens simply vanished without sending any distress signals or leaving any trace. Lieutenant Colonel Lim So-young crouched in the darkness beneath a collapsed highway overpass, watching a Vorthon patrol through her night vision scope. She had been studying the aliens for 18 hours, learning their movement patterns and identifying weaknesses in their seemingly perfect armor. "They walk the same routes every 2 hours," she whispered into her encrypted radio to Captain Yoon Jae-min, who was positioned on the other side of the city. "They never vary their timing or change their paths. They're too confident in their technology." The aliens had made a critical error in their assumptions about human warfare. They expected Earth's military to fight like other species they had conquered, using energy weapons in open battles where superior technology would guarantee victory. They had never faced an enemy that turned the planet itself into a weapon. Captain Song Hee-jin moved through the abandoned subway tunnels beneath New York City, leading a small team of survivors from various military units. Above them, Vorthon soldiers patrolled the streets in their predictable patterns, never suspecting that humans were moving freely through the underground networks that existed beneath every major city. "The sewers connect to the subway system," she explained to her mixed group of soldiers, which included Korean Marines, American Rangers, and British Commandos. "We can move anywhere in the city without being detected by their scanners." The aliens' advanced sensors were designed to detect energy signatures and conventional military equipment. They could not identify threats that used Earth's own infrastructure as cover. The humans had become invisible to their technological superiority. "Master," Sergeant Han Woo-jin observed Vorthon soldiers from his hiding place in the ruins of a shopping mall. The aliens were methodical in their searches, but they only looked for threats they understood. They scanned for weapons and armor, not for humans who had learned to blend into the urban environment like predators. "They're not soldiers," he reported to his team through hand signals. "They're technicians. They depend on their equipment to do their thinking for them. The first real contact between human special forces and Vorthon troops occurred in the early evening. Corporal An Jisoo had been tracking a small alien patrol through the ruins of downtown Busan. The Vorthon soldiers moved with mechanical precision, their sensors sweeping for threats that fit their programmed parameters. What they did not expect was an attack from above. An Jisoo had climbed into the remains of a damaged building and positioned herself directly over their patrol route. When the aliens passed beneath her, she dropped improvised explosives made from common chemicals found in the abandoned stores. The explosion was not powerful enough to penetrate Vorthon armor, but it did not need to be. The blast knocked the aliens off balance and filled the air with smoke and debris. In the confusion that followed, An Jisoo disappeared back into the ruins before the aliens could locate her position. "Contact report," Subcommander Mordak announced urgently to Commander Velthar. "Ground Team 7 reports hostile contact in Sector 12. They are requesting reinforcements." Hostile contact? Velthar was confused. "I thought all human. Military forces had been eliminated." "Apparently not, sir. The humans used some kind of crude explosive device in an ambush attack." Velthar studied the tactical display with growing irritation. The green markers showing Vorthon control were now mixed with red warning indicators where attacks had occurred. The pattern made no sense according to his military computers. The humans had no communication networks left intact, no command structure, and no heavy weapons. How were they coordinating these attacks? "Deploy additional patrols," he ordered. "These are probably isolated groups of survivors. A show of force will discourage further resistance." But as night fell over the occupied Earth, more red warning lights appeared on Velthar's tactical display. The human resistance was not isolated or random. It was organized, intelligent, and learning from each encounter. Something was very wrong with his perfect conquest. The resistance began to take shape in the darkness beneath Earth's cities. Master Sergeant Han Woo-jin led his team through the maze of sewer tunnels beneath Busan, their movements silent as shadows. Above them, Vorthon patrols continued their regular sweeps, completely unaware that human special forces were creating an entire underground network right beneath their feet. Captain Song Hye-jin sat in an abandoned subway station deep under Manhattan, surrounded by elite soldiers from around the world. The conventional military had fallen, but the world's most dangerous warriors had simply disappeared into the hidden spaces that existed in every major city. Korean Special Forces, Navy SEALs, British SAS, Russian Spetsnaz, and dozens of other elite units were now working together for the first time in human history. "The aliens think like machines," Song Hye-jin explained to the international group gathered around her makeshift command table. "They scan for energy signatures and metal weapons, but they cannot detect us when we use materials from our own planet." She held up a small device that looked like an ordinary cell phone, but had been modified with components salvaged from damaged alien equipment. Her team's electronics expert, Sergeant Kim Min-ho, had figured out how to intercept Vorthon communications without triggering their security systems. "We've cracked their basic communication protocols," Kim Min-ho reported. "They're using quantum encryption, but they made it too complicated. The system has weaknesses we can exploit." Lieutenant Colonel Lim So-young coordinated the resistance network from her hidden position in Seoul's underground. She had established contact with similar groups in Tokyo, Beijing, London, New York, and 50 other major cities. The aliens had destroyed humanity's official communication networks, but they had no idea that humans were creating new ones, using everything from modified radios to messenger pigeons. "Phase 1 begins at midnight," she transmitted through encrypted channels to resistance cells worldwide. "All units execute simultaneous strikes on designated targets." The plan was simple but devastating. Across 6 continents, human special forces would attack Vorthon supply depots, communication arrays, and isolated outposts at exactly the same moment. The aliens would face their first coordinated resistance since the invasion began. Corporal An Jisoo crouched in the ruins of an industrial complex, studying a Vorthon supply depot through night vision binoculars. The facility was guarded by 6 alien soldiers and protected by an energy shield that could stop any conventional weapon. But An Jisoo was not planning to use conventional weapons. She had spent 2 days studying the alien technology, watching how their equipment worked and identifying its weaknesses. The supply depot's shield generator drew power from a fusion reactor that had one critical vulnerability. It needed constant cooling from the facility's air conditioning system. "The aliens are too advanced for their own good," she whispered to her partner, Private Lee J. Ho. "They built their technology to work perfectly in perfect conditions, but Earth is not perfect." At exactly midnight, An Ji-soo detonated explosives she had placed in the facility's air conditioning system. The charges were made from common household chemicals mixed with fertilizer from a nearby farm. When the cooling system failed, the shield generator overheated and shut down automatically to prevent damage. The same moment, similar attacks were happening worldwide. In London, SAS operators cut power lines feeding alien communication arrays. In Moscow, Spetsnaz commandos collapsed tunnels beneath Vorthan equipment storage areas. In Tokyo, Japanese special forces used water from broken fire hydrants to short-circuit alien electronics that were not designed to function when wet. Captain Park Jin-woo led his team through the flooded basement levels of downtown Seoul, carrying waterproofed explosives toward a major Vorthan command post. The aliens had set up their headquarters in the city's tallest building, never suspecting that humans could approach from below through the building's foundation. "Their sensors are scanning the sky and the streets," Park Jin-woo explained to his demolition expert, Sergeant Choi Min-soo. But they never thought to watch the sewers and basements. The explosions began exactly on schedule. Across Earth, Vorthan installations erupted in flames as human special forces struck with precision and coordination that should have been impossible for a defeated species. The aliens' advanced technology proved useless against attacks that came from directions their computers had never been programmed to expect. Commander Velthar was awakened by emergency alarms throughout his flagship. His command center was chaos as reports flooded in from around the planet. 63 separate attacks had occurred simultaneously, targeting key infrastructure with devastating effectiveness. "How is this possible?" Velthar demanded from Subcommander Mordock. "Our intelligence indicated that human communication networks were completely destroyed." "The attacks were too coordinated to be random, sir," Mordock replied, studying damage reports on his tactical display. "The humans must have some kind of hidden communication system we have not detected." Major Kang Min-ho watched the alien response from his observation post in the mountains outside Seoul. Vorthan reinforcements were rushing to defend their damaged installations, but they were moving predictably, following standard military protocols that human intelligence officers had been studying since the invasion began. "They're reacting exactly as we expected," he reported to Lieutenant Colonel Lim So-young through encrypted radio. "The aliens are good at conquering planets, but they have never fought an enemy that knows how to be conquered, and keep fighting anyway." The resistance network that night proved something important to both humans and aliens. Earth's special forces had not been defeated. They had simply become invisible, learning their enemy's weaknesses while preparing for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. By dawn, the Vorthan Empire realized they were not fighting a primitive species anymore. They were fighting Earth itself. Commander Velthar stared at the damage reports covering his command table with growing fury. 63 successful attacks in a single night should have been impossible for any primitive species. The humans were proving far more dangerous than his intelligence had predicted. It was time to deploy his most elite warriors. "Send in the Storm Guard," he ordered Subcommander Mordock. "Let these humans face real soldiers." The Storm Guard were the Vorthan Empire's ultimate weapon, genetically enhanced super soldiers who had never known defeat in 300 years of conquest. Their black armor absorbed all light, making them nearly invisible in darkness. Their enhanced reflexes could track bullets in flight and dodge them before impact. Their strength was 5 times that of normal Vorthan soldiers, and their intelligence had been artificially boosted to tactical genius levels. 24 hours later, the first Storm Guard units descended to Earth's surface in specialized drop pods that landed without making any sound. Each warrior carried weapons that could cut through steel like paper and wore armor that could stop tank shells. They moved through Earth's cities like deadly ghosts, hunting the human resistance with methodical precision. Major Kang Minho crouched in the ruins of an abandoned factory, watching 3 Stormguard soldiers through thermal imaging equipment. The alien super soldiers moved differently than regular Vorthon troops. They did not follow predictable patterns or stick to obvious routes. They seemed to anticipate where human attackers might hide and avoided those areas entirely. "These are not the same enemies we fought before," he whispered into his encrypted radio to Captain Song Haye Jin, who was positioned 2 kilometers away. "They think like hunters, not like machines." The Stormguard had been trained to fight the galaxy's most dangerous species, but they had never encountered anything like Earth's Special Forces operators, who had spent their entire careers learning to hunt the most unpredictable and intelligent prey in the universe: other humans. Sergeant First Class Lee Hae-young moved through the flooded subway tunnels beneath downtown Seoul, her team following in single file behind her. She had served 15 years in Korean Special Forces, with combat experience in jungles, mountains, deserts, and urban environments. The aliens' enhanced abilities were impressive, but they had never learned to fight in the kind of close quarters chaos that humans had been perfecting for thousands of years. "Contact front," whispered Private Park Dong-min through his throat microphone. 3 Stormguard soldiers had entered the tunnel system 50 meters ahead, their enhanced vision scanning the darkness for human heat signatures. Lee Hae-young made quick hand signals to her team. The Stormguard might be stronger and faster than humans, but they were still thinking like conventional soldiers. They expected their enemies to engage them with superior firepower from defensive positions. They did not expect an attack that used the tunnel system itself as a weapon. The battle began when Lee Hae-young detonated shaped charges that collapsed a section of tunnel ceiling directly onto the lead Stormguard soldier. The enhanced warrior's armor protected him from the falling concrete, but the debris trapped him long enough for human soldiers to attack from multiple directions simultaneously. What followed was 18 hours of the most brutal close-quarters combat in Earth's history. The Stormguard were faster and stronger than humans, but human special forces had advantages the aliens could not understand. They knew every inch of the tunnel system. They could move through spaces too small for the larger alien warriors. Most importantly, they had been trained to fight when wounded, exhausted, and outnumbered. Captain Park Jin-woo led his team through a series of connected basement levels using maintenance tunnels and ventilation shafts to stay ahead of pursuing Stormguard units. The aliens' enhanced senses could track human movement, but they could not predict human creativity. When conventional tactics failed, the humans simply invented new ones. "They are learning our weaknesses too quickly," reported Stormguard Commander Zexkar to the flagship. "These humans adapt their tactics faster than our combat computers can analyze them." The turning point came when Sergeant Kim Tae-sung realized that the Stormguard's enhanced abilities were also their weakness. The alien super soldiers processed information so quickly that they could be overwhelmed by too much data at once. His team began using flashbang grenades, smoke canisters, and electronic noisemakers simultaneously, creating sensory chaos that confused the aliens' enhanced perception. In the final confrontation, Lee Hae-young faced a Stormguard commander in single combat in a narrow maintenance tunnel where the aliens' size and strength advantages meant nothing. The enhanced warrior was faster and more powerful, but Lee Hae-young had something the alien could not understand: the ability to use pain as fuel instead of weakness. When she emerged from the tunnel 3 hours later, covered in blood but victorious, her radio crackled with reports from around the world. Human Special Forces units were not just surviving against the Stormguard, they were winning. Commander Velthar received the casualty reports with disbelief. For the first time in Stormguard history, his elite units were requesting tactical withdrawal. The humans had not only matched his super soldiers in combat, they had defeated them using nothing but primitive weapons and impossible determination. "Sir," Sub-Commander Mordock said quietly, "perhaps we should reconsider our assessment of this species." Outside in the ruins of Earth's cities, human special forces were already studying captured Stormguard equipment, learning to turn the aliens' own advanced technology against them. The hunters had become the hunted, and Earth's defenders were evolving faster than their enemies could adapt. The war entered its final phase when Colonel Kim Soo-jin stood in the ruins of Seoul's military command center, studying captured Vorthan technology spread across makeshift tables. Her engineering teams had been working around the clock to understand how alien weapons and equipment functioned. What they discovered changed everything. The aliens made their technology too smart, explained Technical Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo, holding up a modified plasma rifle. Their weapons have safety systems to prevent overloading. But if we bypass those systems, we can turn their own guns into bombs. Human special forces had been collecting alien equipment from every successful battle, slowly building an arsenal that combined Earth's creativity with Vorthan technology. The results were weapons that the aliens themselves could never have imagined. Captain Ryu Dong-min loaded his modified alien rifle and tested the targeting system his team had jury-rigged from captured components. The weapon now had triple its original power output and could fire continuously without the built-in cooling periods that limited Vorthan soldiers. It would probably explode after a few hours of use, but that was long enough for what he had planned. Target confirmed. Lieutenant Commander Bae Yoonmi reported through encrypted communications. Commander Velthar's flagship is maintaining standard orbit directly above Seoul. Security appears minimal. They don't expect a direct assault. The plan was insane by any military standard. A small team of human special forces would infiltrate and capture an alien command ship that was larger than most Earth cities. They would use a combination of captured Vorthan transport technology and pure human determination to accomplish what should have been impossible. Staff Sergeant Lim Jae-ho piloted the captured alien shuttle with steady hands, despite having learned to fly it only 3 days earlier. The transport had been damaged during a battle in downtown Tokyo, but human engineers had repaired it using parts from completely different alien systems. The shuttle now flew better than when the Vorthans had built it. Approaching Docking Bay 7, he reported to his strike team. Their security systems are accepting our stolen access codes. We're invisible to their sensors. The boarding party consisted of 12 of Earth's most elite warriors, each carrying weapons that would have been science fiction just weeks earlier. They moved through the alien ship's corridors like a virus infiltrating a body, adapting to every defense and turning the vessel's own systems against its crew. Private Park Min-jun crawled through the ship's ventilation system, planting explosive charges made from alien energy cells that had been modified to overload. The charges were small enough to avoid detection, but powerful enough to disable critical ship systems when detonated simultaneously. The Vorthan crew was not prepared for enemies who could think three-dimensionally. They had designed their ship to repel attacks from other spacecraft, not from boarding parties that treated the vessel itself as a battlefield. Humans moved through maintenance shafts, cargo holds, and service corridors that the aliens had never considered as tactical routes. Captain Song Hyejin led her team toward the ship's bridge, neutralizing alien crew members with weapons that fired captured plasma bolts at triple their normal intensity. The modified guns created more noise and light than original Vorthan weapons, but they were also devastatingly effective at close range. Engineering section secured, reported Sergeant Choi Hyun-woo through the team's communication network. We've gained control of their power systems, ready to overload their shields on your command. The battle for the flagship lasted 6 hours. Human special forces moved through the massive vessel like ghosts, appearing where they were least expected, and disappearing before effective resistance could be organized. They used the ship's own artificial gravity against its crew, turned life support systems into weapons, and converted medical equipment into explosive devices. Commander Velthar made his final stand on the bridge, surrounded by his remaining guards and the smoking ruins of his command consoles. When Captain Ryu Dong-min stepped through the blast doors, the alien commander finally understood the magnitude of his miscalculation. Your species conquers worlds with superior technology, Velthar said, his voice filled with something that might have been respect. We assumed you could be defeated the same way. That was your first mistake, Ryu Dong-min replied, keeping his modified plasma rifle trained on the alien commander. We don't fight to show our technology is better. We fight to survive. The surrender negotiations lasted less than an hour. With their flagship captured and their elite Storm Guard units defeated, The Vorthon Empire had no choice but to withdraw from Earth completely. Their retreat was watched by human special forces who had learned to use alien technology better than its creators. Colonel Kim Soo-jin stood in the ruins of Seoul, watching the alien fleet disappear into hyperspace. Around her, human engineers were already studying captured Vorthon spacecraft, learning secrets that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. "What happens now?" asked Lieutenant Park Mina, who had survived from the first day of the invasion to witness its end. Kim Soo-jin looked up at the stars, knowing that humanity would never again be the primitive species the aliens had expected to conquer. Earth's defenders had proven something important, that intelligence, creativity, and determination could overcome any technological advantage. "Now we prepare for the next time someone underestimates us," she said quietly, "because there will be a next time." In the depths of space, the retreating Vorthon fleet carried with them a new understanding that would spread throughout the galaxy. Somewhere among the stars existed a species that grew stronger under pressure, a species that could turn any disadvantage into a weapon. The age of humanity had begun. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.